Hey guys, I hope you're all doing very well. I had an idea for a video, so I'm going to make that idea a reality, and that is to talk about 10 things that I've learned in recovery. Because I think that sharing experiences in recovery can be really helpful, and I know that it's been really helpful to me to hear about what other people have learned in their recovery journeys. Okay, so number one, the most important thing that I've learned in recovery is to play the tape out, which is something that is often said in AA meetings. You just follow the action all the way through to the end. So for me, whenever I start thinking about, oh, I need to go back to restricting and losing weight. Okay, so what if I did that? Where will I be 3 months from now? Where will I be 6 months from now? Where will that end? I know that it will either end in me dying, which is always a possibility with relapse, or I'm going to be forced into treatment or a hospital, or I'm going to be in the same situation that I was 6 months ago where I try to recover outpatient. All of these options are not something that I really want to go through again. So whenever I have those thoughts, I just think whatever weight I think please stop. Whatever weight that I am going to lose, I'm just going to have to gain it again. So that's really helpful in combating those types of thoughts. I think I've reached a point in my eating disorder where I just I can't lie to myself anymore about where it's going to end. I'm not going to be able to live a life and be underweight at the same time. Just not realistic. Similar to that, second thing I learned in recovery is objective thinking. When you have an eating disorder, it's really common to have distorted thoughts. Something that's really common for me is, oh, well, no one likes me. Oh, I'm terrible at my job. I'm a terrible wife. I'm a terrible dog parent. Hi, Watson. It's adorable. And I just try to think, objectively, is there any evidence that suggests that? Sometimes I fuck up at my job. That's just a thing that happens. Almost everyone fucks up at their job because no one's perfect. Doesn't mean I'm a bad employee. Doesn't mean that I'm bad at my job or that I shouldn't be in my career field. That's just the objective evidence does not support that. I mean, it's the same thing with being a bad wife or being a bad pet parent. My dog is alive and healthy, and all of my cats are alive and all of them are healthy, except for Big Cat, but I'm taking care of him as best I can. So thinking objectively is also really, really helpful. All right, the third thing I've learned in recovery, you can't put limitations on your recovery. And what I mean by that is you can't say, well, I'll be okay in recovery as long as I don't become overweight. Or I'm okay with recovery as long as I still have a flat stomach. Or whatever. That's not realistic because that's not really what recovery is. Recovery involves just accepting your body, how it naturally wants to be. And you don't want your whole recovery, your whole mental recovery, to be dependent upon some physical aspect of recovery, because it's going to set you up to fail. So if you have those thoughts of, I'd be okay with recovery if my arms look this way, or if I can be super toned, or whatever, just really think about that, because life is going to keep going. You may be one of those people that can have those physical attributes. Chances are you don't, and that's why you want them. So that's just, you're kind of derailing your recovery before you've even begun. So don't do that. It's really dangerous. All right, number four. Fourth thing I've learned in recovery, sorry. You have to address internalized fat phobia. And I know a lot of people are so tired of hearing about fat phobia, and a lot of people don't think it exists. Sorry you feel that way, but it does exist. And what I mean by that is equating the word fat with something that is not what fat means. That was not articulate. What I mean to say is, a lot of the times fat is associated with being lazy or worthless or greedy or whatever. So it's really important, when you have those days where you're oh, I'm so fat. So what if you were? What if you were fat? What does that mean to you? Because really, ideally it should just be a descriptor. Some people are fat, some people are thin. It's not like a character judgment. So it's really important to challenge those thoughts when you have them. Because growing up in this society, it's just like internalized racism. Like, you're not going to remain unscathed. Like, you have to pick that up having grown up in the society. So chances are you have a lot of internalized fat phobia. I think almost everyone does. But for your recovery, it's really important to think about what the word fat really means. Because really, it should just be a descriptor. So whenever you're looking in the mirror thinking, oh my God, I'm so fat, ask yourself, so what? All right, the fifth thing I've learned in my recovery is to trust your body. And I know that, like, people say this all the time, and it's really frustrating, and it's kind of annoying to hear people say that. But it's true. Just having my own experience with intuitive eating and maintaining my weight. I've always been blown away that my weight has stayed within, like, a certain range when I'm intuitively eating, because I never thought that I would maintain my weight if I didn't, like, have to count everything or keep track of everything. Like, I just thought I would just keep gaining and gaining and gaining, and that didn't happen. That being said, you still have to trust your body when it gains weight, and you don't know why. Because I think that happens a lot as you get older. Your body fills out. Sometimes you gain weight just to, I don't know, sometimes you just gain weight, and it's like it should be a big thing. It still means that you can trust your body. Obviously, if you gain, like, a significant amount of weight and you really can't pinpoint why, go see your doctor, get your thyroid checked out, I don't know. Go see your doctor. Otherwise, just kind of trust your body to know what to do with the food that you're eating. And if you have any doubts about if you're truly intuitively eating or if you're struggling with intuitive eating, a dietitian who specializes in eating disorders is an invaluable resource. I understand that resource isn't available to anyone or to everyone, but it's really helpful in, like, thinking objectively about your eating and about your body. All right, number 6 is a good one. Recovery will feel wrong. It will feel so wrong. You will be doing what your treatment team is telling you to do, and you will feel like you are doing the wrong thing. And I think that's been really difficult for me to deal with in the past. Like, it doesn't feel right, so I can't do this, because it just doesn't feel right. Like, deep to my core, it feels wrong. No one told me that that's kind of what recovery is. Like, you do these things, and you're like, this is fucking wrong. But it's really not. It's just going to feel wrong. And you just have to, I hate to say this because I hate this saying, but you kind of have to sit with it. And sit with the wrong feeling. And know that eventually, it won't feel as wrong. Eventually, it will feel like you're doing the right thing. Like, you're taking care of yourself, and that will feel right. But that takes a lot of time. So if you're in recovery and you just feel like this is wrong, I'm just letting myself go, or whatever the fuck you tell yourself, no, it's okay to feel that way. But recovery it will feel wrong. But that doesn't mean that it is wrong. All right, number 7. This is also a really important one for me. You can't live a full life while also engaging in your eating disorder. I think especially for my most recent relapse, I thought that if I just relapsed in a certain way, I could still maintain a real life. And anyone who's, like, pretty far along in recovery will probably laugh at that because it's just not true. But I think it takes, I guess I can only speak for myself. It took me a while to learn that I can't, like, there's no way to relapse where I end up living a life that I want to live. It's always a half life, and it's always a compromised life. Like, oh, well, I can eat whatever I want as long as it fits within these certain parameters. Okay, that's not really eating what you want. Or I thought, well, I'm willing to compromise some happiness if I can stay at this weight or whatever. And, like, having moved past that a little bit, it seems really sad that I was willing to compromise on my quality of life just to engage in my eating disorder. Admittedly, this is still something that I really struggle with. There's still, like, that little wheel. Stop emailing me! This little wheel in my head that says, well, if you just relapse this way, and if you just do it this way, then, or if you just stop at this weight, then you could like still have a life. Like, that's not true. Not true. You can't connect with other people when you're like starving or when you're focused on food and weight all the time. You just can't. That's how it is. And don't believe, like, especially on Instagram, there's so many super underweight, usually females, that like have this account that projects this perfect life while they're super, super underweight. And they're like smiling with their like little fruit bowls and they're just like so happy. Like, that's not real. It is not real. I'm sorry. Please don't believe that because it's not real. Anyway, number 8 is kind of a hard one. You have to discover what your eating disorder does for you. And I think for most people, this is going to be really complicated and it's going to be super individualized. For me, I realized that my eating disorder really helps me deal with trauma. It helps me kind of like get away from a body that I associated with being hurt. It helped me deal with like social anxiety because if your brain's starved, it can't really get all fired up about social interactions. It just doesn't give a fuck. My OCD had like an outlet. It helped me in so many different ways. And now that I'm in recovery, I have to find other healthy ways that won't end up in me dying to deal with that. So it's just really important to think about, like, when you have urges to engage in a behavior, think about what's really going on for you and how else you can deal with that besides engaging in an eating disorder behavior. As a side note, my therapist and I argue about this all the time. I say, honestly, nothing is going to feel as good as XYZ eating disorder behavior. And she's like, well, you could like do yoga. Or I'm like, it's not the same. It is not the same. So I think just like being real with yourself, it's not going to be the same, but it's going to be a hell of a lot healthier. And it's going to serve you in the long run to do these things. So you just kind of have to, settle for it, I guess. Just really got to dig deep and find out what works for you and what doesn't. Number 9, you have to find an identity outside of your eating disorder. I think this is really difficult, and it's kind of where I failed a little bit last time in my recovery attempt. Because you can no longer be like I could no longer be Joshua's anorexic wife. Like, that could no longer be my identity. Or, that weird girl that's sick all the time. Like, that's not me anymore. So who am I? Like, what do I like to do? I'm still figuring that out, and I'm like almost 30 years old, but I'm still trying to figure out like who I am and what I like and what I want to do and what's important to me. Because when you're in an eating disorder, the only thing that's important to you is the food and the weight and the counting and the exercising or whatever your set of behaviors might be. Like, that defines you. When you're in recovery, you kind of lose that, so you have to replace it with something, preferably something that's not another addiction. Because I've gone down that road too. I'm like, oh, I can no longer engage in this behavior, but how about this behavior? No, I gotta move past that too. So just really, like, get out there and experiment in things. Like, it's okay if you try something and you're like, God, that was fucking horrible. Well, now you know that it's fucking horrible and you don't have to do it anymore. I don't know, it's just really important to explore what you like to do and what you like to think about and what you like to be involved in. Because if the eating disorder is going to leave a huge void, and you have to fill that with something positive and not another addiction. All right, number 10. This is also probably one of the most important things that I have learned. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. For the longest time when I was in recovery and I felt like, oh God, like I can't do this. Like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I just, this is hard and I don't want to do it and it just feels wrong. And I would have those feelings and I'd be like, well, I have to act on them. Like, it never occurred to me, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but it never occurred to me that I could have those thoughts, have those feelings, have that panicked sense of, oh, fuck, this is wrong, I can't do this, and then do it anyway. Never occurred to me until I saw other women of a similar age doing it, like posting about, hey, didn't want to eat dinner tonight, but I did it anyway. And I was like, oh, well, I guess you could do that. I never thought of it. So shout out to you girls. You know who you are because I've sent you messages about how much I fucking appreciate you. Because that has been like immensely helpful in my own recovery. Just knowing that just because I feel like I can't do something doesn't mean that I can't do it. And just because I feel anxiety doesn't mean that I have to act on it. So that's been immensely helpful. So anyway, that is my 10 things that I've learned in recovery. I've talked for 15 minutes, and I hope you guys understood what I was saying and that I've helped you a little bit in your own recovery journey. If you have any questions, you can send me a DM or send me an email or text me if you have my number, whatever. I'm open. I would love to help people in this regard. That being said, I'm not a therapist, and I'm certainly not a professional by any means. I can just speak to my own experiences. So if you want to get in contact, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an excellent day and that you continue to do the right thing, even if it feels super wrong.